is happening, Magnus sites. So a few of you tagged me, sent me links to this story. Apparently there's this, I guess, mini-submarine, a submersible that is used for tours to check out the Titanic wreckage, and it's gone missing. That sounds crazy to me. Where did it go? What happened? Like, I'm just thinking it's a little mini-submarine type thing. It just conked out and maybe just sunk. And they are looking for it. So let's check this out.
We are following that breaking news. The U.S. Coast Guard searching for a missing Canadian research submarine off the coast of Newfoundland. According to the Coast Guard, the vessel launched with 5 crew members on board Sunday morning.
Okay.
The boat that launched the submarine lost contact with the crew 1 hour and 45 minutes into the vessel's dive. The private company that operates the missing vessel, OceanGate, says in a statement that their focus is on the crew members and that multiple government agencies, as well as other companies, are helping to reestablish contact. OceanGate offers tours of the Titanic wreckage more than 12,000 feet below the ocean's surface. Joining me now, retired U.S. Navy Captain David Marquet, who is a former submarine commander. Thank you so much for talking to us. First of all, what would cause a vessel to lose contact like this?
There's a number of things that could go wrong. The submarine is going to have a mechanical problem. It could be just a communications, in the best case, issue. Maybe they have a cable that goes up and down, the cable broke, or the batteries died, or something simple like that. But often it's a more significant problem, indicating a problem that the crew is incapable of communicating.
Best case scenario is that it is just a communications problem, but if it were operating as normal, they would be able to resurface, correct?
Exactly.
I would think so, yeah. These kind of submersibles don't have big propellers where they can drive out to sea and back, but they usually have small propellers and they can drive up and down. They should be able to drive themselves back to the surface. It's troubling that they haven't reappeared at the surface.
So they were going 12,000 feet below. Maybe a lot of people who are watching have been on some of these.
You know how claustrophobic that is?
100 feet, I think, below water. Maybe the one that I was on did. Very cool, but you're not going down 12,000 feet. Where could they be in an hour and 45 minutes?
Yeah, they could be anywhere around the bottom, around the ship, the Titanic.
So they could already be all the way down, and they could be on whatever mission that they were planning. So tell me about what a rescue might look like. We know that the Coast Guard is involved, but also that the company says multiple other government agencies. What could happen below the sea and above the sea to help find this missing vessel?
So I'd say there's basically 3 phases. Number 1, you have to find them, and not just generally, you got to pinpoint their location. Number 2,
can I just stop you there? Can I stop you at 1 and ask you how complicated that is and how they would do that?
You could do it using other research vessels, which could go down and they have sonar, which you're scanning the bottom and you're looking for a little blip, which looks like a rock, a big rock. This thing is about as big as a sort of a small school bus on the bottom. And that's going to be hard to find. You could use optics if you got that particular kind of ship down there, but you need to get that kind of ship there in order to do that.
But again, going to the best case scenario, if it was down and it was around the Titanic, they know where the Titanic is, right? Anybody who is searching would know where the Titanic is and would maybe start there.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. But it's 1,000 miles from the East Coast. You got to get out there.
Yeah.
And these ships aren't just sitting around just waiting to be. Well, there's a few of them that are on call to respond to situations like this. Okay. But it does take time. So it's a race against the clock. We got to find them and then we got to get them. But then the problem isn't over, because how are you going to get those people? They're under sea pressure, which is 300 times what it is here at the atmosphere, and we got to somehow get them out of there. So you need a claw that's going to go down 2 miles and pick them up, or you need a ship that's designed to mate
2
that
miles?
Ship. I don't know what kind of mating connections that ship has.
If the problem is that they're not able to get up to, but if they're alive inside that vessel, how long could they continue to be down there? What's the window of opportunity for them to be found?
We have a couple days.
Well, retired U.S. Navy Captain David Marquet, obviously all of us thinking about those folks and hoping for the best. Undersea exploration is so phenomenal and so important, and we'll keep our fingers crossed for them. We thank you in just that fast getting up and taking the time to talk to us. Thank you.
Yo, I'm feeling claustrophobic and anxious. Just, I could never go on a tour like that. You know what I mean?
More breaking news this hour at 1 p.m. Eastern. So just a couple of hours from now, we are expecting a press briefing from the Coast Guard about the urgent search and a race to save lives on board that missing submersible that vanished after setting out to tour the wreckage of the Titanic. Now, the Coast Guard has been scanning the North Atlantic with 2 C-130s. They've also dropped sonar buoys that can listen to a depth of 13,000 feet. This is an effort that will only grow more desperate by the hour because that submersible is only believed to have about 48 hours of oxygen left for the 5 people on board. NBC News correspondent Kristen Dahlgren is monitoring the search efforts from Boston. Also with us, Captain David Marquet, a former U.S. Navy submarine commander. Thank you so much for joining us. Kristen, what is the latest on the rescue efforts?
Right, so we're here at the Coast Guard station in Boston that is running these rescue efforts. You mentioned that they're using those sonar buoys, trying to listen for any type of tapping, any people talking, any sense they can get of where exactly this submersible is so deep in the North Atlantic. So we've got the Air Force working on it, Canadian forces as well. They're asking for private vessels who are in the area to help out with the search efforts and anyone who has that experience with deep sea exploration. But really at this point, the Admiral said as of this morning, Ocean Gate, the company that owns that submersible, is taking the lead because it has the information, it has the technology, it knows the most about this submersible and where it was last heard from. Ocean Gate did release a statement. It says our entire focus is on the well-being of the crew and every step possible is being taken to bring the 5 crew members back safely. Keep in mind, this crew is also made up of tourists. One British world traveler, also a Pakistani businessman, and his son, along with, we're trying to get confirmation of who the other 2 members, the pilot and who else was running this from Ocean Gate are. So, it's an exclusive experience that people pay up to $250,000 for. Here is what Stockton Rush, the CEO of Ocean Gate, told us.
That's a lot of money to go down there.
We have an interview process, so you sign up. We have to make sure that people are healthy enough and physically fit. You need to be able to climb a ladder, and it's not.
Thought he was Epstein for this
but it's more important that people understand this is a real expedition. We have, all kinds of challenges, not just weather, but equipment. And then once we've accepted the person into the program, they can pay to join. And then there's a lot of training that goes on. No one is just a tourist.
So at this point, that search continuing,
Yes,
and again, we are waiting to hear from the Coast Guard at 1 on the very latest, Anna.
Okay, Kristen Dahlgren, thank you for that reporting. Let me bring in the captain now.
Stand
The
by.
timeline and the depths we're talking about, Captain. What are rescuers up against? What challenges are they facing right now?
The depth's it's a real problem. This submarine is 10 times deeper,
bring it back up in
essentially,
levels,
than we would operate our military submarines. And the pressure down there is 400 times what we experience here at atmospheric level. In a spacecraft, you're going from 1 atmosphere to 0, so that's 1. This is 400 times the difference between what a spacecraft would experience between itself and the outside. So it's like they're on the backside of the moon. A, we got to find them. B, we got to get them back up to the surface. They're bolted in. They cannot open the hatch from the inside. So they need to be located, hooked, say with a cable, brought back up, and then we can let them out.
It's obviously incredibly dark at that depth. It's obviously very cold at that depth. Sunlight can't reach down there. The Titanic sits around 13,000 feet deep. We know a diver outside a vehicle can only survive a few hundred feet below the surface. And my understanding is there just aren't that many vehicles that can travel to that depth, right? What is
There's a race against time with
needed
this
here? And how do you think rescuers
This is
will go
sad.
about this?
It's
Yeah,
scary.
that's kind of the kind of
Haunting.
equipment is prevalent in the oil well industry, where they need to put wells on the bottom in water that's this deep, and they have remotely operated vehicles. And by my understanding, one of those vessels is on site or about to be on site, and they will use that to first start to search for the vessel. If we were to lower a hook, we're going to need some vessel to grab that hook and somehow hook it onto the disabled submarine, because otherwise it's just dangling 2.5 miles down there.
You were a submarine captain in the Navy. The type of vehicle they're looking for here is considered a submersible. Can you explain how that compares to a submarine? And I wonder, would there be any way for the crew on board to communicate in an emergency situation?
Yeah, so it's smaller. It doesn't have main propulsion, so it can't drive itself, say, from Halifax out to the Titanic side. It needs a mothership to tow it out there. But once it gets there, it has little propellers, and it can drive itself down and maneuver itself around the wreck. Now, they should have the ability, if they're not incapacitated, to communicate. Submarines sometimes carry pingers, electronic pingers. Sometimes there's an underwater telephone. And last result, you take a wrench and you bang against something metal, and that rhythmic banging, boom, 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 you do that, say, every 15 minutes, tap, 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 tap. That would be detected by those sonar buoys that you talked about, and we can triangulate the position.
$250,000. Like, I heard, people are going to eventually start taking trips to space. Yeah, go on this little jetliner that can, or some rocket that can. Yeah, I heard like some of them will go close to orbit. Some will go in orbit.
Coast Guard and our search partners.
Save it.
We offer our most heartfelt thoughts and prayers for the 5 crew members, their families, and their loved ones. Our crews are working around the clock to ensure that we're doing everything possible to locate the Titan and the 5 crew members. Yesterday, we stood up a unified command consisting of expertise from the United States Coast Guard, the United States Navy, Canadian Armed Forces and Coast Guard, and the Titan's parent company, Ocean Gate Expedition. This is a complex search effort which requires multiple agencies with subject matter expertise and specialized equipment. While the U.S. Coast Guard has assumed the role of search and rescue mission coordinator, we do not have all of the necessary expertise and equipment required in a search of this nature. The Unified Command brings that expertise and additional capability together to maximize effort in solving this very complex problem. On Sunday, the Coordination Command Center in Boston received a report from the Canadian expedition vessel Polar Prince of an overdue 21-foot submarine Titan with 5 people on board. The Titan was attempting to dive on the wreck of the Titanic approximately 900 miles east of Cape Cod and 400 miles south of St. John's, Newfoundland. Approximately 1 hour and 45 minutes into the scheduled dive, the Polar Prince lost all communication with the Titan. The Polar Prince conducted an initial search and then requested Coast Guard assistance. The U.S. Coast Guard in Boston assumed the responsibility of search and rescue mission coordinator and immediately launched search assets.
That's nuts that the Titanic sunk there, and this submarine sinking in the same place.
Canadian Coast Guard, Air National Guard aircraft, and the Polar Prince, which has searched a combined 7,600 square miles, an area larger than the state of Connecticut. These search efforts have focused on both surface, with C-130 aircraft searching by sight and with radar, and subsurface, with P-3 aircraft were able to drop and monitor sonar buoys. To date, those search efforts have not yielded any results. Search efforts have continued last night and today.
Man.
Today, the vessel Deep Energy, a 194-meter pipe-laying vessel, arrived on scene with underwater ROV capability. They have rendezvoused with the vessel Polar Prince and commenced an ROV dive at the last known of the position of the Titan and the approximate position of the Titanic wreck. That operation is currently ongoing. Additionally, a Canadian P-3 aircraft is currently conducting a 6-hour search of the area, and several C-130 aircraft and another P-3 are scheduled to fly this afternoon and this evening. The Canadian Coast Guard cutter, or vessel, John Cabot, is scheduled to arrive later this evening, and several other Canadian Coast Guard vessels and the Coast Guard cutter Sycamore are en route. Additionally, the U.S. Coast Guard has the U.S. Navy's Subsal Supervisor of Salvage and Diving Command is working with U.S. Transportation Command to bring additional assets to the search area. These more capable assets will be staged out of St. John's for further transport to the search area. There are also several private vessels, research vessels with ROV capabilities that are making preparations to join the efforts. So I want to reiterate, this is a very complex search, and the unified team is working around the clock to bring all available assets and expertise to bear as quickly as possible in an effort to solve this very complex problem. We'll continue to provide updates as they become available. And again, our thoughts and prayers are with the crew and the families and their loved ones. We will provide unwavering effort as we continue the search.
Man, it's giving me a bad feeling, man. Like it's making me wonder, why is it so hard to find them? It's kind of like they knew where they were going, so they're going to the Titanic. You would assume that they would somehow, maybe if it conked out, which is what I'm thinking, some type of mechanical failure, and it starts to sink, that, you know, it sank somewhere near the wreckage or on the wreckage. I don't understand why it's so hard to find them. Maybe it was just swept out. Maybe if it doesn't have any power on the current of the ocean, it's just, you know what I mean? That's some, oh my God. If anyone else has more details, let me know. I put those 3 videos together. Those are the last 3 videos that I believe MSNBC had on their YouTube channel. So I figured that would give me everything up to date. Oh man. Post your comments down below.